All right. Well, we're starting to know more people who were associated with Jeffrey Epstein and his ring of naughtiness. Not necessarily all the ones we were hoping to know, but a judge ruled that we can know some people, and it's a start. This comes from a case that started the fall of Epstein and his partner, G. was her first, YouTube protects the use of her name. They guard it really strangely, so we have to be careful when we say it. She's the one who was sentenced to prison recently for being his fixer, I guess we'll call her.
His arranger, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to call her G-Max, okay? You know who we're talking about. Now, the case involved Virginia Roberts how do we say her name? Gouffre. Yeah. She is the woman who, really is responsible for his downfall. When so many people had tried to sue him in the past or go to the government for help in the past, she was one of the few who was able to break through because she launched her own civil suit. She sued Epstein and G-Max for defamation. She had claimed that Epstein had abused her and that G-Max had facilitated said abuse and trafficked her to Prince Andrew. And in this case, G-Max called her a liar. So she sued both her and Epstein for defamation. And she came to this case loaded for bear. She had names, she had pictures, she had proof. This photo here with Prince Andrew was one that we learned from this case. This is her and Fallen from Grace Royal Highness Prince Andrew. Now, the suit Gouffre brought against Maxwell was settled in 2017, but as Business Insider put it, this case has enjoyed a long afterlife, and the litigation around it is so unusual and complex that the docket runs to more than 1,200 entries. 9 interested parties and interveners have inserted themselves into the case over the years, including the government of the U.S. Virgin Islands. So this means that because of this case, a ton of people got lawyered up and inserted themselves to protect themselves from being associated with it. A bunch of people filed briefs and said, please redact my name, please don't mention me. That's interesting, don't you think? I think we can and have drawn our own conclusions around this for a long time. Well, the media asked for those names for obvious reasons, and the judge, Loretta Preska, ruled on what could be unsealed over the weekend. This is the judge, Loretta Preska, and this case was filed in the Manhattan U.S. District Court. She ruled, this is really interesting, that public interest outweighs the privacy rights of the 8 John Does named in the documents. Does referred to as like 12, 28, 97, whatever. So what is the public interest in us knowing this? This is really interesting. I want to circle back around to this question in a bit. One of those Does is Tom Pritzker, a billionaire executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels. He had been fighting for his name to be kept sealed, and obviously he lost, because now we know. I know and you know. He's from the famous Pritzker family, but they're not that famous. This is the thing. This Pritzker name keeps coming up recently, and I'm interested in it because they are powerful, unelected people, except for J.B. Pritzker. He is the governor of Illinois. But besides that, a lot of the Pritzkers operate in the shadows with a lot of money. Another very influential Pritzker that activates my spidey sense when I hear this last name is Jennifer Pritzker, born James Pritzker, one of the most, wealthy transgender people in America, one of the wealthiest transgender donors. As James, Pritzker retired as a lieutenant colonel from the Illinois Army National Guard, and in 2001 was made an honorary Illinois colonel. As Jennifer, this Pritzker is the founder of the Tawani Foundation, which gives millions to transgender causes through charitable donations. I've mentioned many times a woman named Jennifer Bielek, who follows the money of the Pritzkers and what she surmises is the end goal. I'm not comfortable sharing it with you, but I am comfortable saying seek it out. The Epstein connection, though, is not one that the Pritzker family will take lightly. They have so much money, and they will, I'm sure, keep fighting to suppress this any further.
So what do we know about this? The names on the list.
Is one of the John Does, clearly not one of the victims, associated. There are so many documents. We're still sort of
pouring through them. Yeah.
Yeah. But these are the people. And again, I'm not saying that all the Pritzkers had anything to do with it. I'm saying that my spidey sense goes up when I hear the Pritzkers for very specific reasons. Another individual named in the documents is Emmy Taylor. She's a former personal assistant to Maxwell. She was also accused of contributing to Epstein's victims. And she says she didn't do that, but a lot of people have sort of said, and including Gouffre, said that she was complicit in these things. The rest that we know right now were the named individuals were victims. And so I'm choosing to not further bring their names into this. But again, so now I want to circle back to this question. Who else is missing? Who are all the other does? Who else is still fighting those unsealing? Who else has any kind of interest? Who are and what is the public interest of us knowing this? Why are we better off knowing, why choose one guy who is a board member of Hyatt? Is it let's feed them the lowest hanging fruit kind of thing? Let's just give them, yeah. It'll only ruin his life. Whereas if we did see, a big fish, then I don't know, though. Like I said, the Pritzker family, it gives me a very cabal vibes.
Blue Panda in our chat says, let them all be shown.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely, I agree. We've been asking for that for a long time. So we're wondering, this
David,
guy is a human shield for who?
David, they said you're muted. We can hear you, but I guess apparently people in the chat can't hear you. So people said someone's messing with the feed. The countdown timer went up and you're
the
muted.
fall guy. Complex Cat says this. He was the fall guy. We got something, we can make connections to other politicians and things with this guy. So, okay, but are we pacified with this? No.
Yeah.
And there will be, this is not a final, because some of these people a few of them, it was ruled they'll be unsealed, and she's waiting for their motions against that. So she may change her mind, so that there are some does out there who this is their fighting last chance. Otherwise, we'll know soon.
Right. Hey, how many more? I mean, you said there's 1,700 people on this list?
There were, no. Let me refer back to my notes. There were more than 1,200 entries and 9 interested parties and interveners. But that was an old number. I think that there are much more than 9 now. If we know 8, I'm sure there are much, much more than 9.
So strange. I mean,
it's a gross story.
I'm going to be sitting down with Whitney Webb tomorrow. I'm going to be asking her about this story because it's just, she's, of course, and she's being censored. She was recently on the Glenn Beck show, but there's been others. She's done interviews in the past that's been censored. I've been talking to her since the early summer when she sent me her book that she was working on. And this is, of course, a story that the left doesn't want to get out. They absolutely do not want to get this story out. And there's a reason why it's always buried. Yeah. And this was not given a level of coverage that it should have been. So many questions about this.
Well, I'd say this is probably a bipartisan don't want it out. This is probably one area that they're all on board. Yeah, no, I might be on there too. I remember that one time at band camp.
Yeah.
Well, we can unequivocally say that none of us on this screen right now were invited to Epstein parties. So you heard it here first.
No, we've never been to Epstein Island. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. No, I mean, it's weird. We lived in New York City, and we probably walked by the Upper East Side where his house was. You know, you wouldn't have even known like the nondescript.
You would not even go to the Upper East Side.
I hated it.
You hated it up there.
Yeah.
You know, the Upper East Side is known as the zip code with the most unhappiness, like the highest rated self-reporting of unhappiness.
That must be where.
That's the
that
richest.
Must be where Bill O'Reilly lives.
Maybe. But Clayton hated it. We lived on the Upper West Side, and I was like, "Oh, do you want to try this?" And he was like, "No,
I don't want to go over there.
Across the park.
Going over there, the Epstein Park. No, I didn't know anything about him at the time. That's the other part of this. It's like how much of that story was like with his original arrest, like all his original, everything he went through originally, like that was suppressed and hidden.
Yeah, I think it was 2008, 2009 was his original indictment, which was, when we were there.
And still didn't stop him from, it's like Sam Bankman-Fried, it doesn't matter. They'd still, share billions of dollars around people. It doesn't even matter.
Does it hurt your feelings that we were never invited to anything cool like that?
It
does not hurt mine.
In hindsight, no, I'm thrilled that I was never invited to anything to do with that guy.
Same.
Yeah, I'm glad there's no photos of me in the same room as Bill Gates. I don't think I ever met Bill Gates. I never. No, like Steve Ballmer was CEO when I was covering Microsoft, right?
Oh, I've been in the same room as Bill Gates at
take a shower.
RSA security conferences.
Take a shower after that. We've got more news to get to. We're going to